Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source of Black news, views, and Black opinions. Today is Thursday, April 14th. I'm Mimi Brown.
And I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo, and on today's report, the National Urban League released their annual report detailing what the state of Black America currently looks like. We break down the numbers. Meanwhile, California's first in the nation reparations task force met in San Francisco on a mission to educate people in this state about its proposal for American descendants of enslaved Africans. Then, Grand Rapids, Michigan police have released dashcam video of the fatal shooting of a black man by cops after he was pulled over because his license plates were not registered. We have the story.
Yes, we do. Plus, actor Cuba Gooding Jr. has pleaded guilty to sexual abuse, but will he avoid jail time? And Viola Davis says the industry didn't make her feel pretty enough for how to get away with murder. We have all that and so much more. It is our voice and our truth, so let's get it.
The state of Black America is an unequal one. That's what the Urban National League's annual report says. Civil rights group and voting rights activists were in Atlanta this week talking about voter suppression methods used by Republicans in Georgia.
Bad actors are using a combination of tactics not seen since the Reconstruction period, with the intent to disenfranchise, manipulate, and intimidate American voters into establishing an anti-majoritarian rule.
The State of Black America report also took a look at economics. Its annual equity index compares how African Americans are doing in comparison to white people. This year's index says Black people get only 74% of what white Americans get in health and economics. That number is up, though, 10% from when the report first started in 2005. This report was very, very, very grim. You know, it's really sad that this was first done in 2005, and now we're in 2021. It's been nearly 2 decades, and it's overall the same. I mean, there were some areas of progress in healthcare, but that's thanks to the Affordable Care Act and the expansion of Medicaid. But there were so many things that declined, you know, like education, social justice, civic engagement. I mean, it's almost sad to see and very disheartening that no matter how much we do, no matter how much we try and catch up, you know, even if we catch up, if they're still here and we're still all going at the same rate, they'll always be ahead. So what do we do?
You know, this is reports like this, Mimi, like you said, this began in 2005, are very important because it gives us a look into society. It gives those actual numbers, those, you know, as Jay-Z likes to say, women lie, men lie, numbers don't. These are the actual numbers here that are letting us know what's happening in our world today. And so one of the examples for the soulmates that might not understand is pretty much it's hard for people of color to overcome systemic racism. And the reason is because it's built into our American society. So this report is important, but really what do the numbers do if nothing is changing from 2005 to 2022?
It's a reality check for us all because if you think about a sense of civil rights, the wealth gap has not really been closed. It's even widened in some cases. So this is an ongoing problem. But like Mimi said and Demi, they both said, if we try to make things better and we try to catch up, but you keep progressing for us white people still on a rise with a higher percentage, how do we close that gap? It's going to be a problem until we learn how to fix that. And it's going to start in companies giving black people positions that they need in power to help others get the rise.
Romeo, absolutely. You know, one state that's trying to close that wealth gap is California. And California's first in the nation reparations task force is on a mission to educate people in the state about its proposal for American descendants of enslaved Africans. So members, they met in San Francisco's historic Third Baptist Church on Wednesday. The 2-day event is the first time that the 9-member force has gathered since limiting restitution to descendants of enslaved Africans brought to by this country.
This task force is designed to examine the harms associated with the enslavement of black people, African Americans in this country, as well as the legacy of the harms of enslavement from Reconstruction, post-Reconstruction, Jim Crow, all the way to the present.
California Governor Gavin Newsom signed legislation creating the 2-year reparations task force back in 2020. It's the only state to move ahead with a mission to study the institution of slavery and its effects on generations of African Americans.
Demi, you may love this story. President Biden may be warming up to the idea of canceling some student loan debt. Now, that's what the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer told activists yesterday. Schumer has called for as much as $50,000 to be canceled. The New York senator told the State of Student Debt Summit yesterday that he's told the president why it's so important to deal with student debt. Schumer says the White House seems more open to the idea, unlike last year.
And President Biden once again is declining to assert his executive privilege over another batch of Trump White House documents. By doing this, Mr. Biden is authorizing the National Archives to turn these documents over to the January 6th committee. They will be sent to the committee within 2 weeks, and once they get there, the panel will have plans to hold live hearings in May and June. It's not clear, though, what information is in these documents, but a House committee member investigating the documents says they expect crimes that we haven't even seen or heard of yet to be in that report.
And the first bus of migrants from Texas arrived in D.C. today, just blocks from the U.S. Capitol. It's part of Texas Governor Greg Abbott's plan to counter the Biden administration's approach to illegal immigration. The Biden administration recently announced plans to drop Title 42, which both Democrats and Republicans say will cause a surge in migration. Meanwhile, the White House is calling the move by Governor Abbott a stunt.
GOP rivals of Herschel Walker are jumping all over the ex-football star because he's avoiding the campaign trail. He's the leading Republican in the race to face Democratic incumbent Raphael Warnock. Now, Walker has been a no-show at debates for the GOP Senate primary. He missed one on Saturday as well. He's also skipped a number of notable GOP events and has held mostly private events.
Former Trump White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows is under investigation for voter fraud. North Carolina officials are looking into whether he cast a legal vote in the 2020 election. Right now, Meadows has been removed from the state's voter rolls. They are trying to figure out if he lived at the address used when he registered to vote. Records show Meadows put the address of a mobile home on the application. He helped promote President Biden's lie about election fraud in 2020. He represented North Carolina in the House of Representatives until taking over as Chief of Staff.
And key members of the White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council, they say that Biden is not doing good enough to make good on those promises, that 40% of all benefits from climate investments go to disenfranchised communities. Speaking at a press briefing ahead of the HBCU Climate Change Conference that happened in New Orleans, council members say they secured $14 million from the Bezos Earth Fund called Engage, Enlighten, and Empower to hold the Biden administration accountable for carrying out its Justice 40 initiative. President Biden made the commitment in a sweeping executive order on the first day of his office. The initiative has been held up as an unprecedented push to bring environmental justice to communities that are currently plagued by pollution and climate inaction.
New York governor is offering $16 million in grants to people at risk of being target of hate crimes. The grants are specifically intended to be used to protect buildings owned or operated by nonprofit groups. They may be attacked because of their ideology or beliefs. The money will go to synagogues and civic groups that have been or may have been threatened by extremist groups or individuals. Fundings will be allotted to 205 groups through the state's Securing Communities Against Hate Crimes program.
And Juneteenth is about to become a national paid holiday in Nashville. Mayor John Cooper is expected to sign the executive order today recognizing the day. As of now, June 19th commemorates the day enslaved Africans in Galveston, Texas were freed. 2.5 years later, learning about the emancipation went into effect. The U.S. Congress made it a federal holiday last year.
In Virginia, the governor, Glenn Youngkin, he's vetoing bills that even his fellow Republicans are supporting. This session of the Virginia General Assembly, Youngkin vetoed 26 bills. All of those bills that he vetoed were sponsored by Democrats. Now, this is the most bills vetoed by a Virginia governor in his first year since 1998, when Republican Jim Gilmore killed 37 bills. The vetoes may not last long, but the General Assembly will have a chance to override them when it goes back in session later this month.
Two families of transgender teens are suing the state of Alabama to overturn laws that make it a crime for doctors to treat transgender youth. Some physicians in the state are joining the suit as well. Last week, Governor Kathy Ivey signed into law two bills targeting trans youth and their parents. The new law denies medical treatments using puberty-blocked or hormones for young people under the age of 19. It also prohibits any gender transition surgeries for youth. The new law also bans instructions on classroom discussion about LGBTQ issues in elementary school.
It's been a year since the death of Daunte Wright, the young black Minnesota man who was shot by a cop who says she mistook her gun for a taser. Well, in honor of his death and other people like him, a software company has come up with a phone app for people pulled over by cops. It's called Turn Signal, and it instantly connects a driver to lawyers while it records traffic stops. The Minneapolis-based firm they're offering it free of charge to residents of Brooklyn Center, Minneapolis. That's where Daunte Wright was killed in 2021. The app usually costs $6.99 a month, but the firm is working in conjunction with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota on the program. You know, I think this is a great idea.
Yes,
I think this is a great idea. You know, I hope that something like this catches on, because I think a lot of times when you're pulled over, you don't know what to do. If there's an app, there's something that connects you to a lawyer, connects you to a police department, connects you to a loved one, anything that will help you so that you feel just a little bit more secure when you're being pulled over.
Absolutely, Mimi. But I think the main thing to focus on here is that it needs to be a free app, because a lot of times, even though $6.99 seems nominal to someone like us, you know, we have jobs and things of that nature, hardworking, there are a lot of Americans in the world that don't have that $6.99 extra a month on top of whatever else they're paying for, bills and medical bills. So making it free is really what needs to be the goal, because that $7 could get in the way of someone saying, oh, I couldn't get the app because I couldn't afford a reoccurring. I don't know what 7 times 12 is off top. You know, math wasn't my subject, but I mean, that could be a lot over a year span for someone. And so making it free, I think, is what needs to be the focus right now.
I think it's 84, by the way. I'm trying to do the math. But
Thank you,
I will say this, it is so important, because now we're showing incidents where sometimes there's police officers taking phones out of people's hands that are trying to film things that are going on at that time. So this can avoid that. You have it set up properly in your car. When you get pulled over, the app is running, and now you don't have to have your hands anywhere else but on the steering wheel to protect your own life.
I love that. Just my anxiety, honestly, you just explaining it in that way, just kind of like eased a little bit, just knowing if I have this app already set up, and when I get pulled over, I just feel so much more ease.
Absolutely.
You know, and to your point, Demi, I think some of the nonprofit groups, you know, can probably raise money so that they can donate to something like that, because we need to kind of look out for each other in situations like this. So that's actually a really good idea, that it should be free.
All right, North Carolina prison inmate is filing a lawsuit against local sheriffs after his sister was found dead in a Charlotte jail. Francine Laney was found dead in the center's medical until last month. Now, she is the fourth person to die in the Mecklenburg County Detention Center in less than a year. In 3 of the cases, records show the staff failed to follow safety procedures. Her brother, Terry Laney, is serving 19 years on a second-degree murder charge.
A St. Louis lawmaker is proposing a new act called the Ahmaud Arbery Act. It will prohibit murder in Missouri from being disguised as self-defense, especially during a citizen's arrest. This initiative, it targets the self-defense argument made by 2 of Arbery's killers who claimed it was their right to make a citizen's arrest. Now, this bill is also a response to the controversial presumption of reasonableness bill. It attempted to strengthen Missouri's Stand Your Ground law. It was defeated in a bipartisan effort. Now, Arbery was killed while on a jog in February of 2020. Some 4 months later, and only after pressure from his family and the media, the grand jury indicted the 3 men who were eventually convicted for his murder.
And we have an update to a story we brought you earlier this week. Grand Rapids, Michigan police have released dash cam video of the fatal shooting of a black man by cops. Investigators say 26-year-old Patrick Loyola was pulled over because his license plates were not registered to the car he was driving. The video shows Loyola outside the car with the officer. Loyola starts running away from the cop who chases him. Police say the officer fired his taser at Loyola, who was not hit. They claim he grabbed the the taser, and it's not clear the exact moment when he was shot, but the video goes on to show Loyola was shot in the back of the head while lying face down on the ground. The cop's name has not been released. The Michigan police and the Kent County Prosecutor's Office, they are reviewing the incident, and a decision on whether there will be charges is expected next week.
I will tell you this, I saw that video and it was very disturbing. This is execution style. That's what this was. You know, it was a disgrace. This was not. You think about it, you get pulled over because your license plate is not registered, and then you don't get a chance to go home. Cops are trained, right? They're trained to handle situations if someone tried to run away, right? The man was not a threat when he was running away. I understand you tried to taser him, and we're not even sure if this young man had that taser, but we do know this young man's name, and it's unfair that we don't know the police officer's name.
You know, Romeo, I didn't even get a chance to watch the video. I don't want to watch the video because I literally, Mimi and I, right, we saw your reaction when you watched the video. Yeah. And so as a black man watching this video, if Romeo can't stomach it, I most definitely would not be able to stomach watching this video. And just seeing a little bit of it online, I could not watch it in its entirety. Your reaction just made it too real for me. But also, this is another black family that has to mourn the loss of their loved one at the hands of police. And so really, you know, Ben Crump, he's speaking up. But what, Ben Crump, he's going to get the big stories. He's going to make it, put it on his Twitter. Right. He's going to do the press conferences with the family. But when do we get to have the accountability? When does this, honestly, when does it stop? Because we know when a black person dies, if it's a big story, Ben Crump's going to grab the story, and we love that. But at the end of the day, if nothing happens, what are we really accomplishing here?
You know, Demi, you're right. But to your point, it is up to us to continue to keep these stories in the forefront. You know, I remember we did the story last week, and the father at the time was fighting to get the footage released, right? Mm-hmm. And because it caught national attention, the footage is now released, right? And it goes back to Ahmaud Arbery, right? They were willing to sweep his death under the rug. But when Ben Crump or Lee Merritt got on board, now they were indicted and they were arrested, and now they're in jail, you know? And so I get what you're saying, but it is literally, we have to make sure and hold them accountable in order to get stories like this, get justice for stories like this.
Absolutely, and there was a protest yesterday outside the Grand Rapids Police Department protesting, and I believe that is what actually helped the video get out to the media. So you're absolutely right. You know,
holding them accountable. Those stories. We don't want to, but we will definitely continue to bring those stories because we have to.
Yeah.